Back here on Busted Open, Dave LaGreca, Mark Henry, Bully Ray, and as promised and promoted, let's bring in the legend himself, Hall of Famer, the one and only, and host of the 6 Feet Under podcast, the one and only Undertaker. Sir, how are you? And thank you so much for the time.
Man, I'm good. Thanks for having me on, guys. And I think actually my role is co-host. I think Matt Lyda is actually the host, if you ask him.
If you ask him.
If you ask him, it's Matt Lyda with the co-host of The Undertaker. But anyway, I'm actually glad to be on a real show. So go.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that I want to talk to you about, and I want to start with the podcast. And you mentioned Matt, and Matt does a tremendous job. You both have such good chemistry on the air together. It's been a pleasure listening. Just talk about that transition and what's it like for you to be hosting this podcast?
Man, I have done this scratching and kicking and being drugged the whole way. It's just, well, as you know, Dave, like we tested the waters a couple of years ago with WWE and me doing a podcast then. For whatever reason, we had five in the can that we were ready to go with, and we just couldn't get a deal worked out with the people that we were trying to sell it to. So can
I make a confession right now? I've never spoken about that. I've never spoken about it before because it wasn't my place to ever talk about it. So Bully and Mark, you guys both know I never talked about the thing that you and I did together. But I do have a confession to make because I wasn't sure if it was ever going to see the light of day. So I did swipe a mug from the desk when I did the show with you, so I have a memento that it actually did happen. So I just thought I
and there's not many of those, so that's a collector's item.
But I never spoke about that because it wasn't my place, and even Bully and Mark asked me questions, and it wasn't my place to talk about it. Obviously, not even publicly I ever spoke about it. So this is actually the first time publicly that was known. But even sitting with you then a couple of years ago and us doing that show together, you were phenomenal. And I really do mean that. I thought you were a natural. So it doesn't surprise me at all how much the one-man show has been a hit and how much this podcast has been a hit as well. So you do a phenomenal job.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking time out of your day for absolutely nothing. But we'll have to we'll have to do it again. We'll have to do it again. I think I'm stuck this time, and now I'm in the deep water. So, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure I wanted to do it. I'm still not sure I want to do it. As you know, I'm kind of coming late to the podcast game, and it really. I guess, when you're doing everything in the WWE machine, everything is pretty simple. Well, now we're having to do everything on our own, and it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to find that passion, now that the wrestling part's over for me. I don't know. We'll see. I'm warming up to it a little bit, and. Of course, Matt and everybody else, they're all gung ho. And the biggest thing, probably my memory, is people will ask me the most random questions about the most random matches in the world. Like I'm supposed to remember who I worked with in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1993. And I'm like, yeah, I got nothing for you.
Do you remember how god awful the concrete crypt match was at the Great American Bash?
No, there are certain things that I do remember very, very well. And I remember getting to the building that day, and I remember asking, like, wait a minute. We're going to fill this with what? yeah, we're gonna wait a minute. Why am I killing Paul Bear? Like he's my guy. And then to sit down and be explained to me like, well, he's the weak link now in the team, and you have to I had to shoot Old Yeller. It's basically what it was. and the best thing that they could come up with is to bury him in a vat of oatmeal. You know, it is what it is. You know, but yes, I do remember that. But there's a lot of things that people ask me. You know, I'm like, they'll ask me about a specific match, and like I don't remember working against the guy in the first place. And it's not any disrespect towards anybody. It's just when you were there for so long and you had so many programs, and you know, the 90s are kind of gray for me anyway, because you know, when I wasn't in the ring, you know where I was at. So so those memories are but you know, it's just there's so many shows, and shows like y'all's where you recap things, and like I said, that's not my forte. I don't keep up with the product as well as I should to do that aspect of it. You know, there's certain things I love to talk about. I love talking about my interactions with the boys. That's the stuff that I really love to talk about, and the nights that we had, and the places where we went. Like, you know, the night in Tokyo, you know, was a crazy, yeah, exactly. You know, so I love talking about that kind of stuff. But there's so much coverage of the you know, the X's and O's, and they should have done this and they should have done that. You know, it's just like there's enough people covering that. So I'm trying to find my niche, and how I mix them both together. And I want to interview people. Wrestling will always be the common link, but I want to take people from other genres, other athletes, other musicians. That's why one of the reasons why I like that song a lot, because if you haven't heard that song, listen to it. Even if you're not a country music fan, listen to that song, and that'll put some shit in perspective. Sorry, but anyway, Jelly Roll's a huge wrestling fan, and you know, so I like to hear people's stories. Like, I feel like sometimes, you know, my story is fairly interesting coming up, and I like to hear other people's stories about how they came up and the things that they had to deal with, and then you know, there's always the wrestling, them being fans of wrestling, me being involved in wrestling, and just the similarities. That's kind of where I feel like I want to go. You know, it's just a matter of whether or not that's where the audience is, you know, because the audience is, you know, they're, you know, as you know, the wrestling audience, you know, they want the, well, what happened here, and what happened there, and what happened there. And, you know, there's a lot of that stuff that I'm still having to convince myself that I want to talk about everything. So
see, that's interesting to me, because we were talking about it before you came on this morning, Mark Bully and I, about the line and that respect line. And, you know, there's still, even though I've been working and doing this show now, we're celebrating 15 years that Busted Open has been on the air. There's still terminology that I'm not comfortable speaking about. There's a certain line that I won't cross with Mark or Bully, because I feel like I have to respect the fact that I have never been in a ring and I have never wrestled. Do you feel like, even with your show, that maybe even with Matt, that there's a certain line that you won't be comfortable crossing, or that fans shouldn't be able to cross?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, Matt doesn't.
Obviously.
Yeah, you know, so, and I'll get back to that, but, you know, so Matt and I are friends, obviously. You know, we're hunting buddies, do all this other stuff together. and what I wanted originally, because I knew that we were going to have to rely on so much wrestling content initially, you know, I wanted a fan's perspective. I didn't want somebody so that, you know, another crusty old timer like myself and was like, you know, and just end up bashing the product. Because that's the least thing that I want to do is bash the product or people. That's not my nature anyway. But so that's how Matt came along, because he's a huge wrestling fan from the old. I mean, he is. You mentioned Ric Flair. Oh my gosh. I mean, it is ridiculous. He just turns into like a little kid. And so that was
same thing with Dave.
I mean, we're all fans to begin with. We all started off as fans, so I never want to lose that. And I heard the latest episode you had with Matt talking about Ric Flair, and it starts with him saying, we have to get Ric Flair on the podcast. And I love that as a fan. I love hearing that passion from Matt. So
yeah. No, he's definitely definitely an old school Four Horsemen WCW guy. You know, he will never. You know, he will never. Everything rides and dies with the Four Horsemen, and that's cool. But so we have really good banter there. But that line, there's that air of respect. You know, and a lot of times I'll find myself like I have a little bit of a tick when you start hearing me start thinking. When I start saying a lot. I've discovered that that's my tick, because I'm thinking in my head, how do I want to cover something without saying something that
is
too
much information.
Yeah, and I've discovered that's my tick. Like I'm thinking like what I want to say without actually saying it, and so yeah, those are all things that I'm having to work through, and there's a lot of changes. Like some days I wake up and I'm really motivated, and I'll wake up and I'm pissed off. I'm like, man, I don't like the way this looks. I don't like the way that looks. We got to get this person on. We got to get this other person. And then there's other days where I wake up, I'm like, man, I'd rather go pull a tooth. I really. I'm really at this moment. I'm on the fence with it, but we're making progress. We're making progress, and Matt doesn't. You know, Matt won't let me alone. So he's like, "Well, you know, we can do this and we can do that," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. It's just, but it is. I'm fighting against myself. Is the tendency there? It's just
Boss, you talked about how the memory might not have been so good, so you're a little hesitant about to tell the stories. Let's talk about something that you probably haven't forgot about, which only happened a month ago, which is your appearance at WrestleMania. Now, we've heard you on a couple of other interviews talk about how this was unexpected, this was last minute, and how you pretty much are at peace now with this being potentially your last WrestleMania appearance. Can you walk us through, as well as your recollection, can you walk us through from the minute you get the text to saying that they wanted you, to actually getting backstage, to getting into the ring? Just take us through that whole process.
So I just got home from doing something, and the phone rings, and it was a phone call, and Paul called me. And he goes, "Hey," he goes, "what do you think about getting involved in this? Maybe, you know, this
Paul
thing."
Heyman.
Paul Levesque. Yeah, he called me, and I was like, "Wow, this must be good." If you get a phone call, right? So
right.
I answered, and he asked me, he goes, "What do you think about getting involved in this? This may be like a dusty kind of finish." And I was like, that's interesting. I said, "Look, man, I'm there. If it," I said, first thing I asked is everybody on board with that? Because you run the risk of being a huge distraction to something that's been 2 years in the building? So that was my first question. I was like, is everybody on board? And he was like, yeah, I think everybody's on board. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about things. I said, look, if you guys need me, I'm going to be in Philly. Whatever you need, you got it. And he goes, you sure? And I said, yeah. I said, I mean, yeah. Why wouldn't I? I said, but I just don't want to be a distraction to what the final story is. If I can add something to it, I said, if anybody has any qualms about it, my feelings are not going to be hurt. I said, I've got plenty of stuff to do at Mania. No big deal. He said, great. So then I don't hear anything for a couple days. Pack up the family. Everybody goes to Philadelphia. And I think it was Thursday. I was about to do my show. I was about to do the One Dead Man show. And so I text Michael Hayes, because I hadn't heard anything now in a couple of days. I'm talking about radio silence. And I text Michael Hayes. I said, Mike, do you know anything? I said, what's the thoughts? He said, well, we're meeting later today. I'll let you know. I said, like, cool. So I get to the show. I get to the One Dead Man show. And I'm a few minutes, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes from going on. And I get a text from Heyman. I was like, nope, I ain't doing this one. I've got the first 45 minutes of my show is completely like it's written and it's in my head. And there's no way that I'm taking a call from Paul Heyman at this point. So then Paul texts somebody else, as Paul would do. And somebody comes in the dressing room. Hey, Paul Heyman would like for you to call him or text him. And I was like, I bet he would. So I blew Paul off that night. And then I saw him a little bit on Friday, but nothing was really, really said. And we get Saturday, now it's a possibility. We're thinking, will you be there at such and such time? And we can talk. And then Sunday, I'm up in the suite, like I'm having a great time with my family. And I get a text that says, hey, we're meeting downstairs in 20 minutes. So I go downstairs and bang, it's all laid out. And that's how it all happened.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't even get to throw in, for a small nominal fee, I would be willing to do a lot of things. Strange and unusual.
Man, I look at it like this. Some people will probably question my business acumen and my business sense, but like WWE's been so good to me, and like I'm there. Like, I don't need to. It wasn't about me. I felt like once I heard what they wanted to do, like this makes sense. This is a complete dusty finish. If you want me to do it, I'm there for you. I didn't need to hold anybody up over any money, because my goodness. Now that being said, if I had known how far I was going to have to run, how far I was going to have to run to get in position, now that might have changed the whole equation. I don't know if they could have paid me enough.
You got to charge by the step.
Holy crap! I got these new knees like that. I hadn't. I've worked out and I've hiked and I've done but I haven't run on them. And I had to run through the bowl of the field there and trying to be elusive and not be seen. And I look like a freaking giraffe running through there to get to the spot.
Now, for me as a fan, strictly talking as a fan, I have come on the air many, many times, and I loved what you did with AJ Styles during the pandemic, that cinematic match at WrestleMania. which in a lot of ways has kind of been forgotten, just because I know for myself, it's very difficult for me to go back and watch that WrestleMania with everything that was going on at that time.
Sure.
So I have said many times, I really wanted you and the character, The Undertaker, to have that one last match or WrestleMania moment in front of fans, because I just didn't want the book to be closed with no fans in attendance. So for me as a fan, you can ask Tommy Dreamer and Mark, because I was with Mark Henry during that match. I was jumping up and down like a schoolgirl when that moment happened, because as a fan, that closed the book for me on The Undertaker, because I really
and long hose and everything.
Like, I just felt like you needed to have that one last WrestleMania moment in front of a sold out crowd with 75,000 fans in attendance. Is there a part of you that felt the same way? Was it difficult for your last match to be a cinematic match?
It was. I was just, when we did the cinematic match, it was almost a relief, because obviously that match originally was supposed to happen in a stadium. It was going to be a regular match. And in my mind, I was thinking, okay, this isn't Shawn, but man, this is really close to Shawn. And I was thinking about the match that we could have. And the only reason I was going to have that match was because I had never worked with AJ. And then, obviously the pandemic happens. And now I'm thinking about having this match in an empty warehouse. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to, it was really deflating. And then the cinematic aspect comes to in there, and I'm like, wow, okay, now we have an opportunity to do something special and something that people have never seen. So that I was really proud of that part, that we were able to do something that was different, and it was obviously going to be different from what everybody else had seen during the warehouse deal. It would have been brutal. I think Edge and Orton had one hell of a match that deserved to have people see it. It was incredible. And so I always looked at it as being fortunate to be able to go and do that match that way. And I've stated since I retired that, like, I've struggled. Like, I knew my body made the decision for me, in my mind and in my heart. Like, there's nothing that I'd rather do than be able to get in the ring and still go. And especially in this era, which is so close to, as far as business wise, the attitude era, just to see everything that's going on in the business. Like, it's just, I think I said it on 6 Feet Under. It was like, I would have to leave sometimes. Like, I was at the Rumble in Florida this year, and when the matches started, I left.
Wow.
It was just that hard for me, because my mind is telling me, you should be getting ready. You should be getting ready to go do something. And I'm watching everybody, and everybody's getting ready, and they're pumped and they're excited. And it's just like, this is torturous. So to do, and I wasn't thinking about when I agreed to do the thing at Mania, I wasn't thinking like that. I wasn't thinking this is going to be it. But once I went out and did it, then I was cool. I was like, you know what? Now I'm okay. I'm okay with this. And I don't know that it was just, it was organic as it could be. But when I came back, I just had a sense of calm and in a sense of like, yeah, I'm good now. And so now I got to figure out what the hell's next, for sure. So,
Boss, how important was it for you to step away from the Undertaker and morph into the American Badass during that time of your career?
That's a great question. For me, and this goes back to the old school storytelling, protecting that character, I thought it's just vital that I leave that alone. I bury it and not bastardize it or cheapen that character one bit. The transition that I got to with the Boneyard match, because of the nature of the promos that AJ had cut, it allowed me to become a little bit more humanized. And the way I described that was what I brought to that match was, I called it the unholy trinity, where you got the Undertaker, you got the American Badass, and you got Mark Calaway all wrapped into one. But I just can't put the hat and coat back on and go and do that, and then the next day go and do my show and be this. It cheapens the whole thing. And that may be, in this day and age, that may be just like, well, I'm a mark for myself, but I just think it cheapens that character and all the work that I put into it. So I had rather put that aside, and then this is, and believe me, it's cost me some opportunities, because obviously people identify with the hat and the coat more so than anything. But I just can't, for the sake of that character and what it meant, I just don't feel like I can just like randomly go and pick the hat and the coat up and put it back on and be that guy and then come back and be this guy. So that's a great question.
So, Dad, do you feel like you could acquiesce to the WWE calling you one day and saying, hey, we're doing the version of Hidden Treasures, and we want you to go dig through the box and pull the hat and coat out for TV to do the show?
Well, so we kind of did that. We kind of did that with some of the purple stuff and all of that. I think it's a little different. Like, yeah, I have that stuff, but it's a little different to go and put it back on and be that guy, because that guy is so much different than what Mark Calaway is or American Badass. So it's a really, I obviously we're all the same person, but I just don't feel like I can put it on anymore. And I could be, I could be silly about that, but that's just how strongly I feel about that character and all the work that we put into it, and all the work that the people that I worked with put into it. So,
you mentioned it earlier. You mentioned about the popularity of the WWE right now and pro wrestling. And by the way, I know it's a small thing, but the one thing I love about this new Triple H era of the WWE is you can say pro wrestling now. I know that was kind of like something that was frowned upon. Now you can actually say pro wrestling. It really is an exciting time. Do you feel that energy and that momentum? Like you said, is it comparable to the Attitude Era right now, the popularity of the WWE?
I tell you what, I will go and I will, like, in my head, like I'll try and pick things apart. And there's a lot of things that I don't like. Obviously, there's still a huge aspect of storytelling that's missing. It's getting better, but overall, the atmosphere and the business, you cannot deny what's going on right now. I mean, everything is sold out. I was at where was I? It was either in Florida, it was either for the Rumble, or it may even been Mania. I was walking down the hallway, and they had the sheet on the wall of the cities that there are no comps for. And I'm not just talking about 2 or 3 cities. There is a list of 30 cities that you cannot get comps for because they're sold out. And I hadn't seen that since the Attitude Era. I mean, and the business, I know, obviously prices are different and all that, but the energy level in the crowd, the product, the guys. I mean, it's strong, man. It is. I will never say anything is better than the Attitude Era. I mean, that's just, I'm gonna hold on to that. But what's going on right now is as close as you're ever going to get, and they're making more money.
Boss, Dave just brought up, the word pro wrestler being used, and for years we were told it's sports entertainment. If you had to check a box on an application, is the Undertaker a professional wrestler or a sports entertainer?
I'd be lying if I said I haven't put both, but not like medical forms and stuff like that. But probably more times than not, it's professional wrestler.
Okay.
And then later on, as I think later on, as people recognize you more and more, then you try to change it up a little bit. And sports entertainer, like, what is a sports entertainer? Because you say wrestler, then people are like, hey, who's that wrestler out there? So that's my reasoning for doing that. But I always, at my core and at my roots, I'm always going to be a professional wrestler. That's just, I mean, I'm proud of that part.
Dave asking me about what do you call you? He's like, set this up, Mark. I'm not gonna call him by his name because that's who he is now. I just won't do it. I'm just gonna call him Mr. Undertaker, or I'm gonna call him Undertaker.
I just called him Sir so far. I introduced him as the Undertaker, and then from that point on, I just said Sir because, again, that respect factor. I have no right, nor have I earned it to call you anything other than introducing you as the Undertaker and calling you Sir. There's nothing else. I'm still struggling, sir, and I'm just using this as what's on the podcast, 6 Feet Under with Mark Calaway. I am still struggling with the Mark Calaway part.
I'm shocked you just said it.
Why I said it as in regards to the title of the podcast.
He did. He put a disclaimer on it. He put the disclaimer.
I did. I put a disclaimer on it. But
you let him off the hook.
But does that make sense to you in the fact that?
No, it totally makes sense because for years, people would come up to me in airports and whatnot, and like they would walk 2 steps behind me. Mark, like I don't know whoever it is. Mark, Mr. Calaway. And finally you have to stop, and I turn around and I was like, you don't know Mark. You don't know Mr. Calaway. Mr. Calaway was my dad. The Undertaker, or So it is strange, but seeing that the podcast, WWE is allowing me to do that. So to keep it separate, and that's why it's not. That's why we're using Mark Calaway. It's just kind of a cheaper.
Dave, you asked me, Mark, the other Mark, the one right here on this side, Bully Ray. I'm calling people Mark.
Now you're calling me by my first name.
What the hell's going on here?
The world is going to shit.
I don't know what's going on right
now.
There
are 4 Marks on this show right now.
All 4.
A total breakdown here.
Yeah, just complete meltdown. My favorite story that concerns you of all time, and I was able to sit in the airport and watch it happen. Bully, I think, was in the airport when it happened too. And I think Bully might even told his story a year or so ago. There was an incident happened where a little girl came up to you. And can you tell the story,
wait a minute.
Please?
I was sitting right next to him. I was sitting right next to him, Mark, at the Pittsburgh airport at baggage claim. You can continue the story now.
I do remember this one. So Pittsburgh was like notorious before any other airport. Pittsburgh was the worst. for the marks coming out, and with the huge binders of 50 pictures of the same guy, and I say this all the time, like if I'm by myself, like traveling, I'm minus like my family, I try to be as accommodating as I possibly can to my fans. Like it's part of it. I have never ever considered those people to be fans. They're trying to make a buck, and it drives me absolutely crazy. I saw something online where Rhea Ripley gets caught at the check-in counter, and this guy's just handing her picture after picture after picture after picture, and I'm just like, I'm talking to Rhea through the thing that I'm watching. I'm like, just turn around, that pisses me off. I mean, everybody knows what it feels like, 6 a.m. trying to catch that flight.
He followed her, by the way.
Yeah, so that shit just drives me absolutely crazy. Okay, the guy comes down, and they're all huddled together, and I see them, man, they're flipping through, their pictures to get to the Undertaker pictures, and guy comes up to me first thing, and he goes, hey, will you sign? And I was like, no, man, I can't do that. No, I just, it's just one. You can put my name on it. No, I don't sign pictures. I just don't do it. And anyway, so we'll go in, we go sit down, and we're waiting on our luggage. And I'm watching this guy from 2 or 3 luggage racks over. I'm watching him, and I can see him talking to this little girl. And he's like, he is giving her verbatim what to do. And she, I don't know, maybe 6, maybe was she 6 years old?
I would say maybe 8 to 10. The sweetest little girl in a little dress and pigtails.
Right. So, and here she comes, and I'm like, this son of this dog, right? So she comes over, and I think, did she go to you? She went to you, right?
She came straight to you.
No. She went to somebody. She went to somebody on either side of me. She went to the wrong person first. And I could hear her goes like, Mr. Undertaker, will you sign that? And I was like, no, I'm him. What can I do for you, honey? And she goes, oh, I'm a big fan. Will you sign this for me? And I'm thinking, this son of a gun, man, he has sent this little girl over here who doesn't even know who I am. And I said, you know what? Of course I'll sign that for you. So anyway, I think I wrote on there, hey, you can go F off, right, on the picture. And I put the picture face down in her hand.
Yep.
I said, okay, here's the deal. I said, you hold this picture just like this, and then you take it back over there and hand it to your dad. And she was like, I said, that's the rule. You have to keep your hand on the picture like that. So she did. She walked all the way back over to him and hands him the picture. And he was like, I got him. And he pulled that picture up and he read what I wrote. Oh my, he was freaking pissed. But I was just like, yeah, don't use a kid to try and that kind of stuff just it rubs me
the lowest of the low.
Oh, it rubs me wrong, man.
Dave,
because I really go ahead.
No, real quick. That was an amazing moment to witness. But we were telling personal stories about you earlier. And as we're talking, I just remembered one story that, Dave, I don't even think I've told on the show, but I just want to share it real quick with the boss. I met you a couple of times, but it wasn't in WWE. We were out in different places. But when me and Devon got there in late '99, you weren't there. You either had an injury or off TV for some reason. And the night I had put Mae Young, powerbomb Mae Young off the stage through the 2 tables, the camera stayed on me for a long time. And I rolled my eyes back into my head, not even thinking I'm doing anything wrong. Well, the next day, Bruce Pritchard comes up to me and he hands me his cell phone. And he goes, somebody wants to talk to you. And I was like, hello? And the voice on the other end just went, do you know who this is? And just by the voice, I was like, yes, sir. He's like, there's already somebody in this company who does the eye roll gimmick, kid. I was like, it'll never happen again.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. And
Hey man,
and
if I had a power bomb Mae Young, I think my eyes probably would have rolled too, man. I think they may have rolled watching it. I was like, that woman was 80 years old. He just power bombed her. Don't shake your head. Don't shake your head. She had a hand with you.
I mean, well, sir, first of all, I want to thank you so much for the time. It was unbelievable to have this conversation. Again, the name of the podcast is 6 Feet Under. Make sure you listen to it. Make sure you subscribe. It's available wherever you hear your podcast, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So definitely give it a listen. And sir, I want to thank you so much. Thanks for giving us all your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, for having me on. It's good to see you guys.
Good to see you too, boss.
Thank you, brother.
Keep killing it, man.